Well, good evening. This is Leonard Lucas, and you are tuned into another episode of the Lucas Report. Today is July 14, and today we're going to be talking about some of the issues. We're still talking about Black Lives Matter and a host of events and news that we're going to be talking about all around the country, this nation, and all around the world. I tell you, as of the recent shootings that happened in Baton Rouge and Minnesota, the country is still divided. Is that a question to be asked to say that this country is still racially divided? And the question to ask, are we still as a country have more ways to go than 60 years before? And so we're going to be asking that question on today. But breaking news out of France, at least 73 people were killed Thursday night when a large truck plowed through a crowd celebrating Bastille Day in Nice, France. The Nice prosecutor office said, according to French media. The driver pointed his tractor trailer into the crowd and accelerated, moving bodies over. The driver was shot to death, authorities said. At least 100 people were injured. Here are the latest developments in that tragedy. The attack in Nice, France began when the occupant of a truck shot into the crowd and then drove for 2 kilometers along the pavement of Boulevard d'Anglais, the main street in Nice. Regional President Kristen Estrosi told CNN affiliate BMF TV, he said police later found firearms, explosives, and grenades in the truck. Anti-terror prosecutors have taken over the investigation. Preliminary information from French officials is that there was one individual in the truck, according to a U.S. law enforcement official brief on the attack. The individual, a male, was led by police, and it does not appear there was any gunfire from the truck. The driver of the truck that drove into the crowd was shot dead by police, said Pierre Henry, and a spokesman from French Interior Ministry. There was no hostage situation at any point. I just want to say here on the Lucas Report, my thoughts and prayers are with all of the people from France. When you see 73 people was killed from this attack, that is absolutely horrible. To see this type of terrorist attack still happening all across the world, and I just want to tell the people of France, my prayers are with you in this time. To see 73 people killed and to understand that terrorism is real. Terrorism is real. We understand that people want to inflict terror on people because terror is control. And when you can control people, when people don't feel safe, it gives people who have personal agenda the feeling that they can stop people from doing their everyday things, having their everyday walk of life. And when you have terror and chaos, it causes people to be concerned. It causes people to have chaos. It causes people to go crazy, and that's what people or terrorists want to do. They want you to think twice. They want you to be very concerned. They want you to be scared, and they don't want you to live your life. And so I want you to say to you today, America, when you see these type of attacks, they want you to be scared. And I want to tell the people of France on today on the Lucas Report, we are standing with you. We will not let these attacks destroy your way of life. Don't let these attacks inflict fear upon you. Don't let these attacks destroy your way of living. You live your life and don't give these terrorist organizations the fueling force to control you. And so again, my thoughts and prayers are with the people of France, for this situation. To see 73 people were dead and 100 people were injured, and they want to inflict fear on all the nations. This terrorist war is not just in the United States of America. This war on terrorism is not just in France. This is all over the world. We're seeing terror being inflicted in Islam countries. We're seeing terror being inflicted in America. We're seeing terror being inflicted in Europe nations as well. And so we say to those terrorists who try to inflict harm on people and try to inflict fear in the minds of people all across this world, we would say you will not get what you are believing for, but we are going to come together collectively not just as a nation, but as a world organism, saying that we will defeat you, will destroy you, and we will not let this act of terrorism destroy us from going out and inflicting fear upon us, stopping us from being citizens or having a productive life in this world. And so to the people of France, we say again, we are with you. Our prayers are with you, and we are believing with you. I know you're going to cry. I know it hurts, but we say to you today, don't let this inflict fear on you. Don't let this situation be a reason for you to be fearful in your own city, in your own country. You need to understand that gives the terrorists power. That gives the terrorists, it fuels them. It becomes a fueling force, and they feed off that to create more situations of terror, so that you can be fearful of their attacks. They want you to be fearful. They don't want you to come up together collectively and take a stand, but they want you to be fearful. And so on today on the Lucas Report, I want to say to the country, city of Nietzsche, and the country of France, we are with you. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we are believing with you that you're going to get through this tough time. A big question that we've been addressing on the Lucas Report is police brutality and police killings. According to Chief David Brown, who is the chief of police of Dallas Police Department, he said recently in a recent statement on national news that police are doing too much. He also stated if there's a mental problem, if there's a problem in the school, if there's a problem far as with criminal activity, the police have to solve all these problems. And I want to ask you on the Lucas Report, what do you say about that? I actually agree with Chief Brown. We have to understand that police are human beings too. Now, being human beings, we don't give police the authority or the right to shoot citizens, innocent citizens who pay taxes and who are law-abiding citizens. We don't give them the right. But understanding that, we have to know that police are human beings. They have stress just like us. They go through problems just like us. They are human beings just like us. They have wives. They have family members. And they go through emotions. And understanding that they have to do one of the most excruciating jobs all around this world. It's one of the most hardest jobs to have, is to be a police officer. Imagine the things that you have to deal with. Imagine to understand what a person's psyche is when they have to go into different situations, when they have to go into different distress situations, when they get murders of murder, when they get calls of rape, when they get all these different calls. And so we understand, and I want to say to the police officers, we understand that there is a police, there's a stress on the police, and we sympathize with the police officers. We understand that police officers could be doing too much. And we talked a little bit about solutions with police brutality and police killings, but we're talking about the stress on the police as of this moment. And we have to have a rising up of mental health institutions. We have to have a rising up of educational programs to say that we're going to combat and have solutions educationally. We can't just call the police every time there's a bad apple at school. We can't just call the police every time there's a person that has a mental problem, call them on the scene to try to dissolve that problem, because all that does is builds up police complaints. We have a big police problem here in New Orleans, and the average wait time in West Bank is 45 minutes for police to respond to a call in West Bank, and over 40 minutes in New Orleans East, or where this studio is, for police to respond to the call. That's absolutely crazy. That's mind-boggling to understand that if there was a real situation being handled, and the police cannot handle it because it takes 40 minutes. So my question is, are we putting too many burdens on the police? I understand that it's a stressful job. And so should each country, my question would be on the Lucas Report, should each state, should each city have special programs, special interest programs to combat some of those smaller offenses that the police have to deal with? Should we have a special tactical teams to be implemented, special teams? For instance, if there's a mental health problem and there's a mental health call, should we have a special mental health unit to address some of these problems? I believe that will take a lot of stress off the police officers, especially with some of these knick-knack crimes that I don't believe police officers need to handle. And so I do believe and I do agree with Chief Brown that there is a problem where police are getting a workload that is too much at sometimes. Understanding that the police workload along with the hours could be stressful. In many cities and states, police have to work up to 12-hour shifts. And understanding that, that's putting on added stress. We understand police have homes, police have families, police have all these other different problems, and to put a 12-hour work shift along with added stress from their family, along with work-related stress, you're creating a ticking time bomb. And so my question on the Lucas Report, we have to get government involved, local, state, and national, to say we have to take the stress load off of the police department because if we keep this stress load on the police department, we're going to see certain situations cause ticking time bombs for officers, where you're going to see officers implode. You're going to see them explode because they cannot handle the stress load. And so I say that not only should officers have a lighting stress load, but we also have to have therapy for our officers. We also have to minimize the workload on our officers. We got to know what is the mindset of the officer when they're going to these situations. Because if there is a situation or instance where there is a ticking time bomb about to manifest, let's get to the problem and solve the problem and have a solution before these things happen. And so, Chief Brown, I commend you for standing up and saying that we have to reduce this load. And President Obama also spoke about their situation, and there's been a lot of scrutiny about police officers. We understand that there has to be more training. We talked about training with neighborhoods. Police officers have to have more training getting connected with the neighborhood, understanding their neighborhood. We understand that that can be a solution as well. But on today, we want to talk about what the police are doing right. And I want to say to those police officers, as I've said before on this news show, that I commend those officers who do right. I commend those officers who put that badge and blue uniform on every day and try to find out objectives and try to get solutions and make solutions after they had information, after they heard and collected all the information, and from all the information collectively on both sides, developed a solution to fix the problem and not just react. We don't need reactors, but we need thinkers on our police force. We don't need people going out to react, and I'm not just talking about just with black lives, I'm talking about with all lives. We just seen recently in Fresno that police just released a video from a body cam that there was an unarmed 19-year-old white male who was shot and killed on June 25th. And so we understand some instances. I'm going to read this story for you, and this is by USA Today. Dylan Noble was shot and killed on June 25th. Fresno Police Chief Jerry Dyer intended to release the video last Friday, but decided to postpone it in the wake of two police-involved shootings last week and a gunman's rampage in Dallas that left 5 police officers dead just the day before. In releasing the video Wednesday evening, Dyer called the footage extremely disturbing to watch, but said he hoped it would help clarify the circumstances at the time of the incidents and why police opened fire. I anticipate that some of the video will answer many of the questions out there in this community, Dyer said. Hopefully, I believe this video is also going to raise questions in the minds of people, just as those questions exist in my mind as well. He says he prays it won't spark violence and simmering anti-police sentiment in Fresno and elsewhere. The Associated Press reported tensions are high, Dyer said. In some cases, we're on a spark away from a forest fire, and I pray this doesn't serve as the spark. This is not a time to be violent. As Noble advances, one police officer fired at him twice, dropping him to the ground, and another officer again orders Noble, now on his back on the ground, to hold his hands up. But he appears instead to move his hand under his shirt, and then that's when the officer fired one more time, and 12 seconds later, another officer fired a fourth shot into Noble. The object turns out to be a small plastic box. And so we see this situation where the tables are turned. A white gentleman by the name of Dylan Noble was shot about a month ago, but now the body cam footage have been released. And so we're talking just about this. Do we think police officers acted justified in this situation? Now, the police officers did. I'm going to say the police officers did give Mr. Noble commands. I believe it was 3 commands that they gave him to put his hands up and to comply with their orders. And we understand when you do not comply with the police officers, they gave him 3 times to comply with the orders. And he did reach in his pocket. But does that justify the use of excessive force by a police officer if someone is reaching in their pocket? Now, duly noted, we do not know what Mr. Noble was going to pull out. We understand that from the recent news articles that there were some mental problems that was Mr. Noble was dealing with. And so from this situation, do we believe that police was right and justified in this situation by shooting Mr. Noble, I believe, 4 times? Now, we understand in this incident that he did reach for what they say in something like a box cutter. But does that justify police killings? And so that's what my question would be to you. Now, we understand the use of excessive force have some laws. One of the big questions, and we talked about it, is does the officer feel like he's in immediate danger? And if so, we see someone pulling out or going into their pockets, fast reacting and going to their pockets, pulling out a box cutter. Do we believe that at the time the police believed that they were in immediate danger? Now, we understand that there were 2 cops. They both had their guns drawn on Mr. Noble. Now, the question would be the officer's intent. Now, I do believe that the officers, when they gave Mr. Noble the command, he was supposed to comply. They gave him 3 commands. And from that, he did not comply. Now, I'm going to say right here on the Lucas Report, do I want this young man to be shot or killed? No, absolutely not. My approach on this situation, we should make a solution that involves both parties, understanding that this is a mental patient who has mental problems. Understanding when the officers go to that situation, understand when they receive the call that that is a mental situation, and we should take this problem as a mental situation. Now, understanding that, we don't know what Mr. Noble's mind frame was at that time. We don't know if he was, the police officer said in a recent report, he was saying he was thinking about killing himself, and so, of course, police officers could have thought that he had a gun. But we have to understand that there is a problem with police reacting into this situation, and we understand that all police officers want to go back home at the end of the day to see their family members. And on this situation, we have to deal with a police reacting problem. We have to solve that solution, understanding that when we get these calls for mental health, when we get these small calls for domestic abuse, when we get those calls, we have to treat those calls in a separate unit than from some of the major crimes like murder and rape. Now, I want to say on this Lucas report today that I believe in this situations, the officers, after they gave the 3 verbal commands, I believe they had to react, because you don't know what is coming out of that out of the man's hands, out of the man's pockets. We don't know what type of weapon Mr. Noble could have. Now, he could have came out with something else. It could have been a weapon. It could have been a gun. And so I believe the officers had to react. Do I think they maybe reacted a second too fast? Maybe so. But understanding that when someone reaches into their pocket with their hands, comes back up as a police officer, I'm sure the first thing they were thinking is, does this gentleman have a gun? And so because of that, they reacted and said, hey, we have to react to this situation because we don't know how it's going to play out. Once he reaches to his hands, and as they gave him 3 verbal commands and he did not comply to the commands, as he reaches back up, that's when the officers laid fire upon Mr. Dylan Noble, and he was shot 4 times as the police opened fire. And so we see a lot of these situations where we seeing reaction instead of thinking. And so we see sometimes the reaction could be justified, but sometimes maybe things could be waited out to see and to assess the situation, because this gentleman was a mental health patient. And I know as a police officer, there was probably thinking, like I said before, that who to know what's going to happen. And these situations to police officers happen in a split of a second. And so we don't want to see life lost. But in this situation, I say that it's a justified act, but I do believe that the police officers may have just acted a little bit too soon. But when it's a situation of life and death, you're always going to get that 50-50 chance. Did they act too soon? Was it justified? He only had a knife. You're bringing a knife to a gunfight. But again, when you put your life on the line as a police officer and a person is reaching for a weapon, you never know what might happen. So maybe it has been too soon, but the officers had to act upon that situation. We're going to go to another story talking about, are both parties unhappy with their candidates? This is from a recent story on Political. On the evening of the major party conventions, voters are grudgingly rallying around the nominees while expressing broad misgivings about the candidates. The campaign in the direction of the country. More than a third of Republicans said they are disappointed or accept that Donald J. Trump, who crashed the party's nominating process, will represent them in the full campaign. An equal member says he does not represent the values the party should stand for. Democrats are only marginally happier with Hillary Clinton as their party's candidate. A quarter of Democrat voters said they are disappointed in her as the nominee. An additional 7% say they are upset. More promising for her, 3/4 say Mrs. Clinton stands for the core values and principles of the Democratic Party. The broad discontent is reflected in this head-to-head contest, which has Mr. Trump and Mrs. Clinton tied at 40%. Mr. Trump's standing has held steady for weeks at around 40 percentage points, while Ms. Clinton has polled in the mid-40s in public surveys. And we've been talking a little bit about is the country unhappy with the recent nominees on the Democratic and Republican sides. Either way, I believe this is going to be a very historic election. On one side, we have a woman who will be the first woman's president of the United States. And on the other hand, we have Mr. Trump, Mr. Big Business. And so for a big businessman to come in, who have not had any political knowledge or understanding before this campaign to come in. And so now we have two candidates who will probably make, who will not probably be, who will make history on this recent election. And so voters are concerned that these two candidates who will be closer to their main principles and core values in this recent election. Now, knowing that, a lot of people are saying Donald Trump is the job president. A lot of people are saying that after Benghazi and the email scandal, how can we trust Hillary Clinton as a president? Now, a lot of people are saying, how can we trust what Donald Trump is saying? Every day he has a different tune to his drum. Every day that he's singing a different tune to his song. He's singing a different song every day. And so now we have people on both sides. And we've heard a lot of testimony from Republicans and Democrats who are saying they're not going to vote in this election. But I want you to understand, if you don't vote, your voice won't be heard, and you're going to get what you're going to receive because you don't vote. And so I want to urge all the people who are watching the Lucas Report on today, you have to vote so your voice can be heard. We see a lot of independents saying both parties do not represent what they're believing for. We hear a lot of conservatives saying, how can they trust Hillary Clinton with email scandals? How can they trust her with all of the dealings, especially with different things that she's been saying, taking on the approach of free education and things. And conservatives were saying how she's going to pay for those situations. They're saying they're giving the young people, riling them up, and she's saying that she's going to give all these free things, kind of like the free lunch approach, and she doesn't have any solutions to actually make these things happen. Trump, on the other hand, has been backtracking everything that he's been saying for the last 6 months. And so now we have a stalemate between both parties saying, how can we trust both candidates when both of them have, in a sense, with their actions, have not been displaying what they've been saying in debates, what they've been saying in town halls. And so now we're seeing the country is very mixed. Now, looking at that, a lot of people have been saying that Hillary Clinton, and we talked a little bit about Donald Trump, saying that he is the candidate for compassion. He also is the candidate for jobs. And he is also the candidate that is going to crack down on crime in these situations. Now, I want to say to Mr. Trump, where's the solutions? Where are the plans? Where is the guides? Where is the roadmap? If you say you're going to crack down these things, we have to have solutions to the problem. And so I would urge you, Mr. Trump, as you start to have more debates, give us a plan, give us a roadmap. If you say you're going to be the president and you're going to run for president and say these things, you have to say to solutions. On the other hand, Miss Hillary Clinton, we got to understand we cannot be riling people up with emotions saying we're going to throw everything at them, understanding that you have a majority Republican House, and that if you try to tell these people we're going to get rid of student loans, we're going to give everyone a job, we can't just say that. You don't have a solution to that as well, saying that we're going to give jobs. Yes, everybody would love to have a job. Yes, everybody would love to have their student loan debt erased. But understanding that this country has a debt problem, understanding that GDP is not growing, and as we're getting more debt, we're understanding if we increase taxes and revenue, this country is having more debt than revenue coming into this country. So how can we pay for trillions and trillions of dollars of student loan debt when we're not even paying on some of the obligations that we owe now, domestically and internationally? And so as we end the Lucas Report, I would ask both candidates, be truthful with your approach. Don't just say things. Make a roadmap, make a solution, make guidelines, and walk it out. I want to thank all of you for joining me on the Lucas Report today. We're going to sign off for now, but I want you to understand this. We do not condone any act of terrorism, no matter if it's internationally or domestically. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people with Nietzsche, France, there were 73 people killed and hundreds are injured. We say to terrorists, we're not going to let you use this as a fueling force to inflict fear of the citizens of this world. We're going to stand up and we're going to rise above this situation. We also say to the police officers, we understand that there is stress among you. And we want to say that we commend those officers who put that badge on every day and do right and do good. But those officers who try to manipulate the badge, we understand that you will have to give an account. Not only in this world, but when you leave here, you will have to give an account for what you have done in this world, and when you go to the next life, you will have to give an account. So I understand. Have a conscience every day that you put on that badge. Understand that when you assess that situation every day, imagine if that was your sister, if that was your brother, if that was your aunt, and if you treat that situation as if that was your family member, you give people compassion. Try to hear out. Think before reacting. I tell you, we can mitigate these problems. I thank you for joining me on the Lucas Report. We're going to see you on tomorrow. And remember this. This is the Lucas Report signing off for now. But we'll be back on tomorrow, Friday, July 15th, talking a little bit more about these political issues and how we can find solutions to solve this problem of racial diversity, of racial bigotry, and understanding that we need to come collectively together to heal this nation and to heal this problem that is dividing this country for so long. God bless you. I love you. See you on tomorrow.